When all the water was gone, if you walked around, if you've ever played Fallout 4, it
Oh
seriously feels
god.
like just walking around ruins like that.
This video and videos like it are made possible by the support of NordVPN. NordVPN is the tool that allows you to freely and securely access any content on the internet from anywhere in the world. Click the link below to get started today and receive 60% off a 2-year plan with 1 month free.
Hey everyone, I'm Armenia, or you can call me Irma for short, and I am a survivor of Hurricane Ida. I was hit by it probably the worst out of most places that it hit. I'm from a slightly smaller community, which I'm not sure if it's quite as, severe as the whole state of New York, but we got it really bad and some shit went down. So I'm going to be telling my story about all this today. So I suppose I'll start with a brief synopsis of just like what exactly my town is. We are a very small community in central New Jersey. I'm not going to give specifics. Don't come hunt me down asking for autographs, but we are a very small, tight-knit community. It was late at night on September 3rd, 2021, and I'd gotten a alert on my phone, severe weather alert. We get these all the time. Usually nothing really happens as a consequence. My community does tend to suffer from getting flooded quite often. Every couple of years or so, we get one, but overall, it's nothing that we can't handle. That's at least what we thought until this time specifically. With this particular event, it was significantly worse than anything we've ever experienced before. I attempted to go to bed that night, just kind of assuming, oh, it's nothing. It's just going to be like the past 15 that haven't really meant anything until what felt like just moments later. I hardly even felt like I slept, but I was woken up by my mother and she was panicking, and I kind of shot out of bed like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" And all I hear is the sound of running water. Didn't think much of it until I went into the living room, looked out the window, and saw our entire street just at least 3 feet deep in water. It was up to our porch, just the first step. At that point, it was already pretty concerning, but we figured, all right, it'll be fine. We'll be fine. It'll die down eventually. It did not die down eventually. We kind of sat there, and then we started hearing some dripping downstairs, at which point we noticed that water was starting to leak into the basement. It wasn't much, we just kind of laid a towel there and figured it'll be fine. And then the water started rising again. Within about 20 minutes, the water had risen up to the third step of the porch, nearly touching the top of it, and at this point, everyone in the house is awake. My father's away. I think he was coming home from work and got caught in the middle of it. He was posted out by the bridge just outside of town. The water was starting to get on top of that bridge. Couldn't get back into town, couldn't do anything to come help us. So it's just me, my brother, and my mom and my dog. Out of everyone, my mom was definitely the most stressed out and uncomfortable. I was trying to keep my cool, but it's kind of hard when the prospect of, losing the house I've lived in for pretty much my entire life was at stake there. It was at that point that we started hearing explosions in the distance, crumbling. The foundations on people's houses were collapsing under the water pressure. It was at this point that my mother was genuinely freaking out, and we started moving as much stuff upstairs from the basement as possible. We were able to get some important stuff out, but ultimately, by the time the water was really starting to like get in there wasn't really much else we could do. It eventually got to the point where the basement was full, like it was easily like at least knee height. It was at that point that we kind of decided, yeah, okay, there isn't really much else we can do at this point. So everything else that was down there, a whole bunch of stuff that I suppose I should explain. My mother is a personal fitness trainer, and she keeps all of her equipment and everything down there, and she had to abandon pretty much all of it. Everything that her livelihood kind of revolved around, we lost pretty much right then and there. Thankfully, she's a very hardworking woman and, she holds down multiple jobs and supports us as well as she can. But at the end of the day, we were ultimately fine because if it weren't for my mother, I don't think that we would have been as fortunate to survive this event as we were. Once we had given up trying to get stuff out of the basement, we started hearing helicopters. We went outside onto the porch and we saw helicopters coming in that were taking people off of the roofs of their houses. These were like elderly people who were really, really sick and couldn't do much to get out of there otherwise. It was a serious, like, emergency situation, and it was being taken very seriously. Thankfully, those people were able to get out, but they weren't able to grab everyone. There were unfortunately a few people that didn't make it out of there. I don't know if it's survivor's guilt, but I still can't really help but think back to that time and just kind of wonder what if I was in that situation? What if I didn't have the resources to call for help, get out of there? It's an unfortunate part of life as we know it. Some people just don't have that kind of luxury. It started to get to the point where across the street, one of our neighbors, who pretty good family friends, know them pretty well, the foundation to their house ended up collapsing. It was at this point that my mother took initiative and ended up grabbing a hammer and wading through the sludgy ass water all the way to the side of the house and cracked open one of the basement windows to just let the water in to equalize the pressure so that our foundation wouldn't give, but not everyone had the same sort of idea. A lot of people lost their houses that day. A lot of people had to move elsewhere, which I don't really blame them. We're currently trying to get out of here as is. If this happens again, I don't really know what we'll do, but that'll probably be the last time that it happens to my family specifically. We're gonna get out of there as soon as physically possible. There's a reason why this specific location that I live in is known as the Lost Valley. It is because this sort of thing happens so often, and due to this, it's almost inhospitable to those who don't have the resources to come back and recoup losses from natural events like this that happen. It happens all the time. There's a river right nearby that flows pretty much right into the valley. It always starts down at the soccer field, which isn't that far away from my house. There's a little river embankment right there with a bike path on it that is always the spot where it starts. Why nothing has been done to try and really control that, I'm not entirely sure. I'm no architect. I don't know what really could be done about it. For all I know, there's nothing that could be done. But it's kind of bewildering that despite this, there's still quite a few people that live here. Everyone tries their best to, live with it, and for the most part, it's easy enough. It doesn't happen frequently enough to where it's really that huge of an issue usually. But when it does, it is fucking devastating every single time. After we had gotten the window broken, pressure equalized, we ended up calling over to one of our neighbors who, luckily for us, happened to be going around on their boat, getting people out of there as best he could. If it weren't for my neighbor that day, I think there might be a possibility that I might not be here today to tell this story. We kind of owe our lives to him. We've done our best to, repay him for what he did for us, but, ultimately, it's a bit of a thankless gesture. It's just kind of what you're supposed to do in that situation. There's people you care about, you go in there, you get them the hell out of there. If you're able to, that's what you do. So I suppose in that regard, it's good that we have these kind of connections to people that live by us, which, of course, is my mother's doing. She's a very outgoing, outward person. She's good with people. And due to that, we've got quite a lot of friends around town. When he eventually came around to pick us up, I suppose probably the most difficult part was not trying to get all of us on there, not trying to get all of our, important stuff loaded on there. It was probably trying to get my dog on there. My dog is terrified of water, and I don't think under any circumstance has been more stressed out by anything ever. He and my mom were in the same boat, no pun intended, but you know what I mean. It took a bit of doing, but we had to physically pick him up, hand him over to our neighbor, have him set him down in the boat. He was very scared, but we eventually got him out of there.
I mean, dogs aren't known for handling new and dangerous circumstances very well, so I think either of my dogs would be freaking out too.
Yeah, mind you, my dog is a pretty big dog. He's a big, heavy boy, and trying to pick him up was quite the task. We weren't sure that we were going to be able to even get him on the boat, which was not a possibility that we were really willing to entertain, so we eventually got through it and started getting ourselves down the street and towards the bridge out. As we went down this street, it seriously looked like something out of a fucking disaster movie. People's houses were like essentially think of like the house equivalent of being up to your knees in water. It was up to people's front doors, and this was all the way down the street, all the way just literally everywhere. Our town looked like it had just become a lake. It was fucking harrowing to see. Houses collapsing in on themselves, knowing that the people that lived there would never be able to return. They would have to completely move out, find somewhere else to live, which probably for the best. Probably for the best. I really would not wish this upon anybody. It is a genuinely terrifying experience to go through. If anyone has experience with having your town flooded, you will know that it is one of the most anxiety inducing events. It is such a slow and just mentally taxing thing to see. Knowing that realistically, there is nothing that you can do to stop something that is purely controlled by nature.
But you survived.
I I did. I was lucky enough to get out of there. I couldn't be more thankful that we got out of that situation as luckily as we did that day. For over a week, we had to stay over at a family friend's house who was outside of the flood zone. Then, once the roads were clear enough for us to get out of there, we ended up staying over at my grandparents' place for a little bit until the house was, at least for the most part, clean enough to get back into, finish fixing up. And that took over at least 3 weeks, nearing a month. Eventually, we had rebuilt, and things for the most part were at least relatively back to normal. I don't have all too much in regards of, lasting trauma regarding the situation, but I can't really say the same for my mother. I really feel bad for her. She gets this reaction whenever she hears flowing water anywhere that it shouldn't be. If under any circumstance she hears the sound of flowing water, she will start to get really anxious, really nervous. Thankfully, in the few times that it has happened, I've been there to, be like, hey, things are all right. It's not happening again. But I don't know. I can't fathom what that kind of a thing could do to somebody. Having owned this property for over 19 years now, I have lived in this house my entire life. I don't own it, my parents do, which I can only imagine makes the prospect of losing it that much more terrifying for them. Everything that they've worked for all these years, keeping this house in good shape, could have just been swept away in moments if we didn't think fast enough. It is incredibly, incredibly good that we took things seriously, were proactive during the situation, and didn't let fear control us. We thought of solutions and did the best we could, and it ended up working out. Things have Things have since gone back to relatively normal. A lot of people have moved back to their houses and life has returned to normal. We're just really hoping that we can get out of here before the next one hits. Because with this track record, it's bound to happen again. The least we can do is be prepared for it, I suppose.
Unfortunately, it seems that you're the best prepared that one can be, having made it through.
Yeah. Thankfully, due to the past experiences that we've had with it, we sort of know what to do in these situations, at least for the most part. Before, it was never so bad that we had to, go out and break any windows or anything, but at the very least, we knew that it was something that we were able to get through. We've done it before, and I think that was probably one of the only things that kept us from completely freaking out and losing our minds. Panic is a really. It's. How would I describe it? It's an overpowering emotion, one that you can't really do much to control once you're already there. You stop thinking, you stop trying to think rationally in any way. It's just get the fuck out of the situation right now. That was what most people were doing and didn't really have much of a means to do. Fucking hell.
Thank you for talking with me about this.
It's really helped to get this off my chest. I haven't really talked much about this because, it's a pretty personal situation. It's not something that a lot of people go through. But at the same time, I mean, it is technically considered a natural disaster. So people that have gone through like wildfires, fucking tornadoes, any of that shit, it's the same sort of thing.
It is a traumatic act of God, as the insurance companies would put it.
Personally, I'm not really one for religion or superstition. I just personally believe that it's nature giving us a big old middle finger
Yep.
just for existing here. But if there is any higher beings up there, fucking hell do they hate us.
Yeah, the insurance companies actually call natural disasters acts of God, along with other things, and say that you can't sue someone, for instance, if their tree falls in a flood and then hits your house. Because it's just when that happens,
Yeah.
no one knows what the fuck is going on. It's like everyone's done for at that point,
Yeah, basically.
But you made it.
I suppose I should also mention, after this was all over, who else but President Joe Biden decided to stop by our humble little community. Did not do much, I
That's
must
kind of his
say.
thing. That's not a political
Stopped
statement. He just
by,
doesn't do
pretty
much.
much said hi, I'm so sorry for your loss, we are here for you, and just fucking dipped.
Dude, that's such a Biden thing to do. Like, either side can just totally agree that's such a Biden thing to do.
I could not make this shit up if I tried.
God damn.
If you look hard enough, you will probably find the exact place where it happened. I am certain there are photos of it. I know that I sent you quite a few pictures of
Yeah.
my own from when this all happened. That had happened afterwards, once the town had been at least somewhat cleaned up. When all the water was gone, if you walked around, if you've ever played Fallout 4, it seriously
Oh,
feels
God.
like just walking around ruins like that. So many just broken houses, just remnants of places that used to have people and no longer do. and never will again.
That must have been surreal.
It was fucking terrifying. As someone who has several thousand hours in both Fallout 4 and New Vegas, seeing shit like that in person was
Ugh,
probably one of the most holy shit experiences I've ever
I
had.
bet.
My heart fucking sank the second I saw one house in particular. I didn't know who lived there. For all I knew, there could be nothing inside that house previously. As far as I was concerned, it was set dressing in a place that I only resided in one place in. Seeing the side of this house pretty much torn open, being able to see just the broken kitchen, the bathroom, everything just exposed to the elements was probably one of the most holy shit, this is real things that I've ever seen. I ended up just taking a walk around my town alone, and it really is just the same vibes as just basically Fallout. You just see all this shit around you that, at some point there was people here. There was life here, and now it's all just gone.
Wow.
Just like that.
Even though not many were killed, it's one of those things where just everyone feels that. You feel that disaster throughout the entire country.
Yeah. Especially within our community. It is a very small, tight-knit community. Even with the loss of just these few people, there was a very distinct feeling of loss for everyone throughout the town.
Yeah, I'm guessing with a small community, like you said, you feel every loss.
Yeah, it really is. I just dread the day that this happens again. As much as I love where I live, it's a very nice town. It's a nice, small, cozy town. I've lived here my entire life, and it has treated me very well. I'm happy where I work. I know quite a few people around here. They're really good people. Everyone around here is good people. A lot of people will say that about their town, regardless of if that's really true or not. But for me, it really is just everything's tight knit. Everyone knows each other. If something happens, everyone will be there. My mother, being as much of a, people person as she was able to set up a fundraiser, and it was pretty much entirely funded within the few weeks that it took to get our house back together.
That's good.
We have a close, supportive community here. We all support each other, and it's really inspiring to see. And I really wish a lot of places could have that same kind of unity. We're a very divided country here, so actually having some place that's just a quaint little place where people actually get along, it's pretty refreshing. It's just unfortunate that unfortunate things have to happen to, some of the most innocent places.
Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested.